I'm on a different computer tonight. This is my edit suite normally. I have Photoshop on it and I'm using this to mix together images of a P40 and a Hurricane to see what I need to change on the P40 foam model to get it to look more like a Hurricane. My aim is to change a P40 into a Hurricane, a flying model. And that's only because they don't make a Hurricane currently in 400mm. I do have an Airfix Hurricane over here and it looks lovely. I can use that for reference too. Originally I was going to cut away parts of a Spitfire and I could get the upper wing shape to look pretty good. But unfortunately the side didn't look so good. Now at the moment with the Hurricane image there you can't see, but when I take the Hurricane image away that really doesn't look very much like a Hurricane anymore. It looks pretty good from above, but it just doesn't look very good from the side. If I close that down, this is a P40 Warhawk and how it normally looks. So you can see the wings are not curved in the same way as a Hurricane, and this leading edge on the tailplane is not as flat or horizontal when we look at it in this upper plan view. It's got more of an angle to it. Also, of course, the P40 has this massive air intake at the front, and that is the largest change. So if I now go to this view, and if I remove the Hurricane imagery, this is what a P40 model could look like once I've cut away certain areas. So I will remove parts of the wing tips to get rid of the point and make it more of a curve. The front intake would need to be removed. I would need to add a cockpit section. I would actually need to move forward a little because the original cockpit finishes earlier. I need to add a piece of Loft insulation foam cut to shape as an underbelly intake and put a very slight curve on the vertical stabiliser. That may or may not be necessary, but now that does look a little more like the profile of a Hurricane from the side, and it certainly does from above. The nose is always extended on these models because the main wing on the flying 400mm series is moved rearwards. The dihedral is a little more on the P40. As far as I can tell, the Hurricane normally is more flat, but I'm not too worried about that. So I think overall that would look more like a Hurricane. In other words, rather than use a Spitfire, I'm going to use a P40 to create my Hurricane from in 400mm. So I'm going to make this out of 400mm foam, a foam model, a foam flying radio control model, to try and make a radio control Hurricane. That's how a Hurricane does look. It's a little different. And that is how my Hurricane would look. Using this spare wing that I have used a hot wire cutter to try and cut through the EPP foam, and I've got a rounded shape on this wing. It has left it a little bit rough in places. So I've just got a pack of 50 blades, got this on my knife. I'm going to cut around this tin. Cool. It's very, very tough, this. No. If I do it freehand, let me see if I can. pretty rough as well. The smoothest effect is to use the hot wire cutter, and if I'm not happy with the finish that gives me, and hopefully on a thinner area of wing that won't seem as much, then what I'll do is I'll put a little chemical metal or plastic padding isopon, something like that on there, just to smooth it off and sand it. I've tried sanding this, it doesn't really help. Mind you, I'm going to use Loft insulation foam, and that I will be able to cut nicely, either with the wire cutter or with the knife. This knife does cut through this foam really nicely. Perhaps I can cut off a few pieces and get my air intake shape using a little piece of sandpaper just to smooth it off. And that actually I can shape. So this foam, EP foam is one thing, this foam, Loft insulation foam is something else. I can shape that. In summary, the EPP foam will be good for the air intake underneath for the Hurricane, but shaping the underneath of that nose, that's going to be the most problematic part. We'll see how I get on.